The best of Money Matters. The Big Story.
Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Hung Bin Jung. Over the next 10 to 15 years, Singapore is set to welcome at least 80,000 new public and private homes in more than 10 new neighborhoods across the city. These include developments in Newton and along Orchard Road, where 6,000 private homes could be built. The draft Master Plan 2025 by the Urban Redevelopment Authority, released earlier today, also showed that new neighborhoods would be drawn up in other parts of the island. They include Dover Medway along Dover Road and former site of Singapore Racecourse in Kranji, as well as Paya Lebar Air Base and the Sembawang Shipyard area. So what impact will this new stage of growth have on Singapore's property market? Well, joining us today to share more is Professor Sing Tian Fu, who's a Provost Chair Professor at the Department of Real Estate at NUS Business School. Hi, Professor. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right, Professor, 80,000 new homes over the next 10 to 15 years. How significant is this in the context of Singapore's housing pipeline?
Yeah, I think in this draft master plan, I think about 80,000 new homes being planned in the 10 locations. In terms of quantum, 80,000 is not a big number, but I think we'll probably look at it more like the diversities and this location, because I think if you look at this housing distributed across different parts of the country and also in some popular areas, and also we look at also the mix of this housing, public and private housing types. So actually provide a lot more choices for people who are looking at different housing options, because you have housing in the city areas, you have housing in other new locations and so on, even in the housing estate. So it gives a lot of options for people who are looking for different housing options. And then this actually can also meet the kind of housing demand we are looking at in the next 10 to 15 years, because this is only a 10 areas. There are other supply in the market as well.
Okay. So what does the DMP 2025 signal about the government's longer-term priorities for land use or urban development here in Singapore?
I think if you look at the 2025 draft master plan, I think housing and business location continue to play a very important role, because I think they want to make sure that Singapore continue to have sufficient land to cater for housing needs. At the same time, also to strengthen Singapore's position as a business hub and creating jobs. And other than the housing and the job, I think the other two important kind of consideration in draft master plan is about the resilience and also the environment. I think they also plan very, very long term ahead to make sure that the island is resilient against the sea level rising and other environmental threats. And I think these policies and plan actually is much more forward-looking. I think make sure that given despite all these land constraints, we are able to actually provide sufficient land to cater for different land, different use, especially to meet housing aspiration, to create jobs, and at the same time to have enough green and environment for leisure and open space.
Okay. Well, given what's been announced so far, what's new or surprising in this latest draft compared to the previous master plans that have already been laid out by the URA?
I think this master plan, focus a lot more on trying to actually provide what we call the resilience, to plan ahead, because I think the old previous round of planning, a lot long-term target they're trying to achieve kind of population target. I think this coming plan, gives a lot more thought into the different unique characteristics of different locations, and actually trying to enhance and also trying to actually build more people-centric kind of community, in the sense a lot of people to have more spaces to live, play, and also to work, and also leisure as well.
And the government is looking to provide more residential options in central locations. This include developments in Newton and along Orchard Road, where 6,000 private homes could be built. What's driving the shift toward building more homes in prime central areas, Professor? And why is there a bigger focus on private homes instead of public housing?
Yeah, if you look at Orchard Road areas and Newton, Orchard Road, Paterson areas, this is traditionally the most exclusive housing areas. We in the past we used to call this area District 1911, where they attract a lot of private condo and high-end luxury condominium attracted. This is a popular destination for a lot of expatriates as well. If you look at this location, in the past we have not seen large supply coming into this area, but this area continues to be a very popular area among the foreign investors, even the local, who actually like to live close to amenity like Orchard Road and shopping areas and so on. This current plan to have this corridor between Newtons and all the way to Paterson, create a lot more housing supply, especially the private housing. I think this can help to actually give residents, even the foreign investor, choices. I think these areas, because of the high-end expensive houses, I think it's very important to look at the demands of the market, because with the high-end segment, the luxury segment market had not recovered as fast compared to the rest of the central area and outside central area. So I think the important indication is the upcoming government land sale in the Newton area. We'll probably have to see what is the response to this then to mitigate or to be able to assess how fast will be demand pick up for this area. Because I think the next land sale, government land sale, will be just beside the Newton MRT station. I think this is a very good indication to see how fast this new supply of private land, private housing in this area can pick up.
Okay, and with Newton and Paterson in the spotlight here, will developers see enough upside in such locations given the current ABSD and foreign buyer restrictions?
Yeah, I think this is one of the uncertainty we probably have to observe, especially in this, as mentioned just now, the Newton Circle GRS site that will be launched in August this year. And we will see how the developer will actually respond to this land sale, because currently, as you say, the ABSD continue to be one of the risks for developer, especially this area is popular among the foreign investor, and with the current ABSD of 60%, whether the foreign investor is coming back or whether local investor look at this area as one option. Because I think if you look at overall market, the rest of central areas and the CCR, or what we call the core central area, the price actually started some conversion in prices. So again, this area will depending on the pricing of the new supply and also the possible demands and coming into this area.
Well, the draft master plan 2025 also showed that new neighborhoods would be drawn up in other parts of the island. Now, they include Dover Medway along Dover Road, the former site of Singapore Racecourse in Kranji, as well as Paya Lebar Air Force in the Sembawang shipyard area. Do you anticipate any challenges in converting parts of Defu, which is currently an industrial area, into residential spaces? I mean, how will this affect existing businesses there?
Yeah, I mean, Defu area, if you look, especially as I mentioned, especially industrial areas, there's very big areas. And with this Paya Lebar Air Base relocation in 2030, this area going to be transformed. And they're still yet to review the long-term comprehensive planning, the detail about this Paya Lebar area. But this area, especially Defu area, if you look at it, it should be a very, very good area to connect Hougang and this future Paya Lebar Air Base area. This area, especially after the government plan to review the height restriction for this area, which is near the airport, and we probably expect a lot more high-rise, high-density building coming out in this area. Whether it could be a mix of high public and private condominium in this area. This can actually help further rejuvenate this area and make this area a lot more vibrant and living as a housing area, and also with a lot more commercials and amenities in this area.
Now, the relocation of Paya Lebar Air Base frees up 800 hectares and a staggering amount of land. Do you think this area might end up being an oversold future town concept?
If you look at Paya Lebar area, it's very close to center area, and also the MRT station, the Paya Lebar Way areas has actually developed quite well, attracted quite a number of commercial activity in this area. So I think the long-term plan for this Paya Lebar Air Base, it gives some flexibility for the planner to think about longer-term kind of need and demand for this area. There's actually a lot more freedom for them to plan, because after the relocation of Paya Lebar Airport, they actually have a large plot of land for them to actually plan carefully about what will be the future town in this area. Because I think this area will probably take another 20-30 years before the whole place will be fully developed. So it's a very good opportunity to actually plan further ahead about, they can even consider about sustainable technology, autonomous vehicles, and even more climate resilient kind of development. So I think it gives a lot more opportunity to develop area.
Well, looking into Dover Medway, the draft outlined a new Dover Medway neighborhood along Dover Road, offering a mix of private and public homes alongside, new amenities and recreational spaces. It's strategically located near One North Business Hub, which makes it ideal for residents in various sectors such as infocom, media, and tech. What are your thoughts on Dover Medway being developed to serve more professionals in specific industries? Do you think the area is ideal for it to turn into a more, commercialized area?
These areas is very close to One North, the current One North, which is a R&D and science hub, attracted a lot of investment into R&D, biotech, infotech, digital media, and so on, kind of technology. I think in order to make this area a lot more attractive, I think one component that this planning may add on is actually bringing a lot more housing options for people who work in this area, so they can actually consider, living nearby. Because I think at the moment, you look at One North area, there is still shortage of the housing options, so the people may may have to commute to work in this area. But having this government can actually enhance this area, bringing a lot more housing supply to this area. So this can actually, if you look at the whole area as a greater one north, I think with more residents, more housing, then it can also help the amenity, especially the F&B and other kind of commercial activity to have the coverage to be able to have kind of economic appeal.
How do you think they can strike a balance, though, between, creating more community spaces and recreational areas in a heavily employment-linked neighborhood?
Yeah, I think that areas, if you look at the one-off areas, also there are a lot of greenery. There are also a lot of old bungalow, colonial bungalow that have been preserved, especially at Paterson area. So the railway corridor as well. All these actually there's a lot of potential for the planner to actually integrate this area by integrating the residential, the R&D, and also the business activity together with the green space. So to create a community, I think it's a big enough kind of scale because I think to make this area attractive, not just a test space for new technology, R&D, so a place to attract more talents into this area, especially to actually trying to attract people into biotech, digital media, and all this area. It's very important. This actually attractive R&D and also activities like incubator and so on. I think it's important to make this area a more comprehensive development.
Well, then, URA also plans to introduce around 5,000 private homes near Mediapolis, close to West Essex Estate, the rail corridor, and One North Park. And this new housing offer will offer easier access to nature and heritage sites. Why do you think there is such a focus in accessing nature and heritage sites when considering residential developments in urban hubs?
Yeah, in this area, especially because it's very close to the rail corridor, and on the other side, it's actually Tanglin Hall, the old Tanglin Hall estate. So I think it gives them an opportunity to actually integrate this housing closer to the greenery. At the same time, actually can make the environments more appealing to residential because I think the rail corridor has been preserved. I think the surrounding greenery can be an attraction for people who like to live near the green environments and bring this corridor and kind of environment. So I think it's good to actually have this connection so that people who live there, work there can also access to nature, and also those old bungalows can also be actually conserved, and some of them can be converted into other use as well.
Do you foresee any challenges when it comes to integrating residential developments into innovation districts in this area, Professor?
Yeah, I think there's always a need to have a balance because I think they probably need to have a balance between the space because you have too many residential, then you have less space or land, other kind of business use. So I think it's important to actually maintain a good balance and to make sure that this area not being overly congested. At the same time, there's sustain open space and innovative space for these people to be able to mingle and interact afterward.
What else do you expect from URA when it comes to housing and community planning for Singapore's future?
I think it's important because I think people-centric kind of focus in the planning is important because you are trying to not just build the hardware, I think also to actually create a community. To create a community, I think it's difficult to be planned from the top-down kind of approach. Sometimes you have to look at the local unique kind of characteristic of the location so that you can actually integrate these characteristics so that you don't see kind of cookie-cutting kind of town being replicated in different parts of the island. I think it's important to build a community and also preserve the kind of unique characteristics in different locations. I think this is important. So that's why you see a lot of area being identified as identity nodes and you see heritage nodes and so on. I think this creates diversity and also important to actually preserve some of this history as well so that people remember about the location, about the place.
Right. Some great insights from you there. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining me today.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Professor Sing Tian Fu, who's the Provost Chair Professor at the Department of Real Estate at the NUS Business School. This has been The Big Story with me, Hongbin Zheng.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.